Hey guys, we're on an Acura TL here, 2007. I think this will go for 2004 through 8. Saw a lot of YouTube videos that were incredibly helpful about the valve adjustment and timing belt replacement. And this is just a few the tips that I kind of found that helped me do my job. I was a dealer tech for about 12 years. I've been out of the business for a while, but thought I'd tackle this myself just because of those helpful YouTube videos. A few things I did notice though is that all the videos they were saying, well, if your gaskets seem pliable, reuse them, go ahead. You know, the valve cover gaskets seem to be pretty soft, and they actually indeed are on my vehicle. They are soft. I did elect to replace them anyway with a Velcro top end kit here, just with the valve cover gaskets. What I did find out though that's rock hard and not pliable at all are the seals that go around the spark plug tubes going down into the head here that sit around right there, and they have no pliability whatsoever, and actually had a little bit of seepage indication on top of the valve cover, and also the bolts that hold on the valve covers themselves. So they come with these little kits here that are a replacement with the seals, and I would highly recommend replacing those and the tubes that go around the spark plugs. So a couple little tips that I found here is if you want to rip these off of here easily to get your old ones off your hold down bolts for the valve cover, is just to take a pair of pliers and just twist these sideways, and that'll help just break those off, and then you can have you can easily just slide your new ones right back over your old bolts. But just basically pop the metal part off of it and then give it a good twist, and it'll open those up and break them, and then you have it sitting like that. So that's a good way to do that. Also, you'll see a lot of the angled feeler gauges on the YouTube videos for adjusting the valves. I also found my intake valves to be a bit loose. They were at about 25 to 28, 0.25 to 0.28, where they're supposed to be a 0.22. If you have a 32 piece feeler gauge set like I did, which is readily available at pretty much everywhere, O'Reilly's, even Harbor Freight has a set, you can't really find any that are bent that have that 0.22. It's either a 0.23 or a 0.20 millimeter. So what I did is, you see in the videos how it's supposed to be just a nice drag on that. I went down just snug on the 2.3 and pulled it out, and so it was kind of a tight drag, and I figured that's going to be really close to the 2.2, and then I backed up with the 0.20 millimeter and just make sure that that was really loose, and that way I know I'm right in between those. Also, the angled feeler gauges that you see here, that might show that a little bit better. They don't sell those readily in a lot of places, and so for a $5 kit off of Harbor Freight, I went ahead and just bent them myself, took them out, and then tied a piece of string on it in case I did drop it and I didn't want it to go anywhere I didn't want to leave it. I was able to retrieve that easily. But having the bend in it is, you have to do that. Otherwise, if you try to keep it straight, it's really simple. It's not simple. Sorry, simple, stupid. But anyway, these are really easy to bend. You just put a bend in them and it'll stay there. The other thing that I noticed too is if you are going to replace these spark plug tube seals, pulling them out, you'd want to use a seal puller if you have one. If not, you can take a screwdriver and come in on the back side of it. Should be the other side of the valve cover, and try to get behind the edge and twist those out a little bit. But when you're driving them back in, you also want to use some sort of a driver like this that has a similar size to the seal itself, and go flush only at the top of the valve cover itself right here. You want to make sure the seal matches up flush, because these will drive in farther. So if you use a socket that's the same size as the seal here and you drive this into the housing of the valve cover, when you flip this over and you try to press it down over the spark plug tube, it's not going to actually go over that. It's going to sit up too high and you're not going to get a seal there. So I recommend just going flush here, and you'll probably have to, when you're going on with new valve cover bolt seals and these seals, it's going to be a lot high, and new valve cover gaskets I should say, you're going to have to snug it down very evenly. And you might even have to take like a small flat-headed screwdriver or a big pick or something and kind of tickle these seals down around these tubes here. Make sure you don't get those cocked on there sideways, and on the back side it's a lot more challenging. That's going to be something I had to use an inspection mirror with a flashlight for, just to show what I was making sure that I had it going on straight. So anyway, those are a few tips that I've learned so far. If you're wondering, like I am, how many miles you think you can get out of your timing belt on your Acura TL, recommended service interval is 105. There's 115 on this car, and this is the tensioner for the timing belt, and it's got a pretty sizable amount of oil that has leaked out of the tensioner, and signs of it also dripping down the back side of it here on the bottom. So I would say that the belt is probably not going to be the limiting factor on these, because the belt looked pretty good, and so does the serpentine belt. But this tensioner has obviously got, you know, quite a fair amount of oil and buildup on it from leaking, and that's what's going to lose your pressure and your tension on your belt and have it slip if it's going to fail, I believe. Another thing you might consider when you're doing your water pump is when you jack the engine up to take off that mount, do it in a way where you can place a jack stand under it and remove the jack, because you're going to make a huge mess with draining the coolant when you pop the water pump off. And so it's nice to have a huge drain pan area that you can have where it's not flowing everywhere. After you do pop your water pump off, it's a great idea after the new one is back on to pour some water down in this area and blow it all off with compressed air, so you're not putting a nice coat of glycol on your new timing belt. When you're installing your new tensioner, 9 foot-pounds is the torque rating on the 2 bolts. And this is the new timing belt tensioner. The only failure I've seen on the forums is somebody over-torquing those bolts and then they break. And then there goes your timing belt. So use a torque wrench, 9 foot-pounds.